How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, August 29, 2018. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. Lots to get into. Dave and I heading out on Thursday for the All-In Weekend. We'll be doing a panel on Friday. You and me, Wade, Bruce Mitchell. First and maybe last time ever. We got our own Q&A on Saturday. All-In is Saturday.
Autograph signings.
I guess, yeah.
I got at least one, if not more, documentary interviews. Going to AEW on Friday night. Maybe Thursday night as well, depending on when I'm not going to get in time for the show, but I might get in time for the end of the show. And then All In Saturday night. And then I'm going to actually attempt to do an issue this week.
Oh, man.
I think I might be able to do something close to an issue. It's going to be tough though, because I'll be home Sunday night. All In, there's probably a lot I could write about from All In. That'll probably be the feature, the major stuff. So
be a pretty good feature story.
Yeah, I won't have time to do much else though. So because I got to leave Thursday to go to England, so I got a pretty short time on to get another issue done. So it's not a definite that I'll be able to do it, but I'm gonna try.
Well, here is the full card for the All In show. Actually, before the full card, how is Matt Jackson?
Matt Jackson's fine. Nick's over there. I mean, he flew out today.
Oh, was Nick the one who was sick? I thought it was Matt.
No, Nick was really sick.
Okay, how's Nick Jackson?
He's better. He flew out today. I haven't really heard much from him other than he was feeling, I heard yesterday from him, he was feeling better than he was on Monday, and he was hopeful that his flight wouldn't make him worse, and he's there. They're there. So hopefully, they had a lot of work to do. So hopefully he'll be able to rest, but I know he won't be able to rest one bit. It's going to be completely overwhelming putting this thing together. And hopefully, he doesn't have to wrestle till Saturday. So hopefully the virus will go away enough to where he can put on a near match of the year performance, given that I think the expectations for that main event with the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi against Bandito? Is it Bandito, Flamita, and Rey Mysterio Jr.?
We got the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi versus Rey, Phoenix, and Bandito in a six-man. That is the advertised main event of the show. Yep.
Phoenix. Yeah. Yeah, no Flamita. So
yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be awesome no matter what.
See, the reason I asked was because Cody on Twitter asked everyone for prayers, which usually means something pretty serious.
I think I mentioned that the other night. He was pretty sick. I mean, he was pretty sick coming home Sunday from the Philadelphia show and everything. His father talked about like prayers for the whole family, so it sounded like maybe some of the kids were sick too. I didn't hear that for sure, but the father said that, and I didn't really. I mean, I just heard Nick was pretty damn sick, but I mean, like, he got that Being the Elite. He's the one who pretty much edits and puts together the Being the Elite show, so he got the show done on Monday night. I know he wanted to get it done earlier on Monday, but he was pretty much bedridden. But in the end of the day, he flew out. I hope he didn't spend an extra day or two home. I mean, that's just how it goes. So there it is. The real important things now, being that the show's sold out instantly, is the pay-per-view number and the television rating. And they're like, WGN America doesn't do much in the way of television ratings. Like 200,000 viewers on WGN in that time slot would be phenomenal. And I don't know what if that's viable for this. I mean, there's no other way to watch the first hour, but it is the first hour. I mean, it is the prelim, so to speak. It's a tag match with the Briscoes and the Battle Royal. And I'm sure there's 11 of the 15 guys in the Battle Royal, if it is a 15-man Battle Royal, because they could always change that number. But there's a few spots that have been left for surprises. I don't know who they are. I know Jeff Cobb is working the AEW shows, and I know he's working the Warrior Wrestling show the next night. Austin Aries is working the show the next night in Chicago. I actually should look at some of the other names that are on that show. So they're in town. I don't know if that means that they're going to be there. Neville obviously is not advertised anywhere. I have no idea what's going on with him. But contractually, I'm under the impression he could do it. I mean, WWE said he's free and clear and could work anywhere he wants. There's no restrictions, so in theory, that would mean this show.
It's fascinating that they let him go 2 weeks before All In with no restrictions.
Well, how long can you keep a guy? There may be.
I mean, I'm 2 more weeks. This is WWE we're talking about here.
I'm sure that contractually they probably couldn't keep him for any more weeks. If they could, they obviously if it came down to doing this, of course they would keep him the extra 2 weeks. I mean, his contract probably in some way, shape, or form expired, and they probably could only freeze it for so long. I don't know I don't know the whole situation. I don't know. It's every situation's different. Yes, if they could freeze him past this show, of course they would not want him to do that. But the fact that they did, that he is. I mean, they didn't want Ray doing the show, but Ray's doing the show, which will be Ray's next to last show. Ray's working Friday night in Vegas in a 6-man tag that will be streamed, which is a part of the Lucha Expo in Vegas. And then Saturday he's working that, and then Sunday he's working in Chicago for the Warrior promotion. And then that's it. He's got no more dates after Sunday anywhere. So then he starts with WWE if that happens, which I think is pretty much a lock at this point. Whenever they decide it's time for him to come.
Well, the rest of this All-In show here for Saturday night. Kenny Omega, Pentagon Jr.
Yeah, interesting match there. I wonder, what... I mean, I think on this show, everybody's gonna have their working shoes on. And Kenny Omega with his working shoes on is going to be awfully good. And Pentagon will also be awfully good. I think that this fight, the one that's the dark horse match that's going to tear the house down, is Joey Janela and Hangman Page. They announced it as now a street fight, which means that gives them even more leeway to do crazy things. And I can't remember. I've been in the Sears Center before. I think maybe only once, which was I remember being there for the Fedor and Dan Henderson fight. And I'm trying to remember what the balconies look like, because I could just imagine either or both of those guys on this show trying to jump off balconies. I just think that, and there's Kota Ibushi too. God only knows what he's going to do. I wonder what that building, I'm trying to remember. I haven't been, I should have, I didn't know when I went there all those years ago that I needed to scope that place out to find out balconies and places that Kota Ibushi and Joey Janela can dive off of back 5 years ago or whatever it is, probably longer than that, when that fight took place.
We've got you mentioned the street fight, Hangman Page, Joey Janela, Chicago street fight. Nick Aldis, Cody Rhodes, NWA World Heavyweight title.
Yeah, that's been promoted the hardest on social media because of the Billy Corgan, Dave Lagana videos. Nick Aldis has done a very good job on these videos. Cody's done an excellent job on the videos as well. They're trying to make, they're going to have the NWA title. They're trying to make it mean something. I've got to think on this show Cody wins, don't you?
I was figuring that going in, but who knows?
Yeah, I think there's, especially because they're running a big show October 21st in Nashville. I've got to think, I don't know this, but I got to think Cody wins. I just think that's the reaction that they're going for. So yeah, that will be very interesting, as far as the pay-per-view goes. So if the Omega match is second from the top in the sixth, so they're probably going to put the Cody match third from the top, I guess. Because they did say the 6-man was the main event, and they did say Kenny Omega was going to be the semi-main event.
We've got the Okada-Marty Scurll match. Jay
Yeah.
Lethal defending against the winner.
So Marty Scurll has said no comedy, that this is a serious match.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No, are you kidding me? Of course they're going to do comedy.
Okay. He said serious match.
I think that's... Hey, listen, I could be wrong, but Marty Scurll saying I'm going to do a serious match with Okada sounds like there's going to be a lot of comedy in that match.
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Jay Lethal against the winner of the over-budget Battle Royal. We have got Moose, Rocky Romero, Colt Cabana, Jordan Grace, Ethan Page, Brian Cage, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Jacobs, Marco Stunt, Brandon Cutler, and Punishment Martinez. One of them facing Jay Lethal. Or a surprise.
It could be a surprise. It could be someone else facing Jay Lethal. Yeah, I don't even know what to think of that Battle Royal. I'm not a fan of modern Battle Royals. I mean, I grew up with Battle Royals being a big deal, but modern Battle Royals are usually not that good. So, it's a way to get guys on the show.
Madison Rayne, Tessa Blanchard, Britt Baker, Chelsea Green, 4-way.
Yeah.
Stephen Amell, Chris Daniels.
They've had some. Do you see some of the Christopher Daniels interviews?
No.
They're freaking great. Christopher Daniels is just his interviews.
He's a phenomenal talker and worker.
Well, yeah, he's a really smart worker. When Stephen Amell cut this promo on Christopher Daniels, and Christopher Daniels just looks, they're like face to face in this dingy gym, and Stephen Amell's like training with Cody, and like the idea is that Christopher Daniels, why he's at Stephen Amell's training center, I have no idea, but he had to be somewhere face to face with him. And he's just going like, you're a big TV star and you're in this dingy place, because it was really beat down, like garage looking gym, right? It wasn't like any fancy thing whatsoever. And Amell cuts like a really good promo, on he's younger, he's stronger, whatever, and bigger. And Daniels just like looks at him and just goes, I don't believe a word you're saying, and neither do you. It was just the way he delivered the line, even though he's clearly the heel in this. It was really good. And the promo he cut on the show a week ago Monday, not this past Monday, but a week ago Monday, was really something. Like one of the better promos of the year, probably. So that's been some really good stuff.
And then the Briscoes, Frankie Kazarian, Scorpio Sky is the all-in 0 hour. Well, that and the Battle Royal are the two matches for the WGN show. And that's the card.
Yeah, so pay-per-views. I mean, the pay-per-view is interesting because the pay-per-view is really where I think a lot of the profit margin is. If they can do a really big pay-per-view number, this show could be really successful. I mean, I don't know what it's so weird. Because this is just so, I mean, it feels like there's a ton of momentum, but you don't know what that means. I mean, like, that celebrity boxing match, and granted that 784,000 buys was a worldwide number, but that was a celebrity boxing match. And they're big YouTube personalities, much bigger than any of these guys, but still, these guys are also big YouTube personalities, and they do have a fan base. And if they could do, I don't even know if it's feasible, what you can do on pay-per-view right now, if you're not WWE. But that's going to be real. I mean, look, the only numbers that we have are that, 30-minute sellout, which would indicate very, very high demand. But is that like a large percentage of their fan base all coming in and not a percentage and not a lot of people watching the pay-per-view? I find that impossible to believe. I've got to think that there's going to be a lot of people buying the pay-per-view, but some of them, again, the pay-per-view's very diluted in a lot of ways compared to a normal pay-per-view like a UFC pay-per-view, in the sense that you can get it on Honor Club much cheaper. You can get it on if you got a subscription to New Japan World, you can't watch it live, but you'll be able to watch it like right after the show. It's not like a 30-day window or anything like that. There's internet pay-per-view, but internet pay-per-view is still pay-per-view, and that's the Fight TV pay-per-view that's for if you're outside the United States in particular, and you're not, but you can still subscribe to Honor Club and get it for a lot less than the pay-per-view. It won't be on TV. So, I mean, the real and New Japan World, as well. So, I mean, like a lot of the people who would be buying this pay-per-view can get it much cheaper by either a New Japan World or an Honor Club subscription. So I think that's going to hurt the pay-per-view numbers significantly, very significantly. But, that's where like a lot of the margin profit would be. I think really the biggest profit, I think, might be the merch. I think that between the convention, they got 2 days of a convention, actually 3. I think they're still doing stuff on Sunday, but they've got the convention and the live show. I've got to think that they're doing what, 250, 300 grand in merch that night.
It's gonna be huge.
Gotta be. I bet. You know what? They won't beat their live gate with merch because that'd be. I think I figured it out to like roughly, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I did get a breakdown of before the tickets went on sale. I did get a breakdown of how many tickets were in every category, and it came up to about a $450,000 house. So that's like about $44 a head. I don't believe they're going to do $44 a head on merchandise. I don't believe that. But it's. I'm trying to think what WrestleMania does merchandise-wise. I think WrestleMania might beat that, and this is going to be a more heavily, a crowd that's going to be more heavily into the merchandise, especially like if they have all-in event T-shirts, which obviously they're going to have them. I think that those shirts are going to be kind of like big-time collector's items. So I think that's, I don't know. Whatever it is, I expect gigantic merchandise numbers. And again, that's a huge profit business too. So, even if they underpriced the tickets, which they very clearly did, and even if they went into a building too small, which who knew ahead of time, but they did. The fact is that, and again, those numbers would be bigger in a bigger building too, but the merchandise, I think, is going to make up for it. So I think that, like, in the end, this is going to be a big, it's already a success. It can't be not a success. It's impossible. And the card itself, unless you have you go in with expectations that it's going to be like PWG Battle of Los Angeles or New Japan Dominion, the card's going to be great unless you put unrealistic expectations on it. Because again, that 6-man tag is going to be very difficult not to be great. Omega and Pentagon will probably be great. Like I said, when you look up and down the card, there might be 1 or 2 matches that aren't that good. There might even be a match that you expect to be great that might disappoint. Amel and Daniels, in theory, shouldn't be any good because, Amel, again, as a guy who never did pro wrestling, if you remember, I think the one match he did in WWE, he did do really well in it. And there is that. And again, I don't think anyone's going in expecting this is going to be this great, incredible match. It just has to be good enough. And, again, Daniels is a very experienced guy who's going to he's very smart when it comes to putting a match together. And
hey, listen, if I had to work with one guy on this show, top of my list would be Chris Daniels.
Really?
Yeah. I really think so.
It's interesting.
Me. I'm not talking about anybody else.
You really wouldn't, in all seriousness, you really wouldn't want to work with like Phoenix or anybody like that?
I would love to be in the ring with them, but I don't know. I don't know if I could do that style. But I know that I could have a good match with Chris Daniels.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from.
And if I'm Stephen Amell, absolutely, positively.
Oh, yeah. No, but you know what? If you're Stephen Amell, I think that I'd want to work with the Young Bucks. I really do. Even though like Daniels would be a simpler match, the fact is that I know he wants to do.
Well, if you're going to talk about a 6-man where like he's going to have a few spots and kind of be buried in the 6-man, then yeah, sure. But
in a singles match, yes.
In a singles match, absolutely, Chris Daniels.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't want to work with Kenny Omega in a singles match. It's just too you could do it, and it would be a good match. You know what? I would say if there was anyone that you know what though, Kota Ibushi has got a level of talent that's just unreal. I mean, have you ever seen Kota Ibushi work with a stuffed animal?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to drop him on his head.
You don't have to drop him on his head. He'll do the whole match for himself.
Yeah, he'll drop himself on his head.
I mean, if you ever watch Kota Ibushi against a stuffed animal, I mean, it's like, I really believe that, like, if he could work a match with a stuffed animal and get super heat, and he's done it, and I've seen it live, and I would never believe it if I hadn't seen it with my own two eyes, how good a match it was. In all seriousness, people get mad at me saying this, but Kota Ibushi did a match with a stuffed animal in Dallas, Texas that I saw that was better than the majority of matches in WWE. I won't say it was not better than a top match when you have the two top guys in there, no. But it was better than the majority of matches. He is an unbelievable worker, like unworldly talent. So I think that if I was Stephen Amell and there's one guy in the show I'd want to work with, it would be Kota Ibushi, because I just think Kota Ibushi could do it. Kota Ibushi's worked with guys that are horrible before, and he's figured out what to do with them. And he's just so ungodly talented. I mean, Christopher Daniels, yeah, you know, if you wanted to do a match to get by and not look foolish, and he'll carry it through and you know, do little tricks and everything. But if you wanted to go in there and go, fuck this, you know, I'm going to go in there and have a great match, it's Kota Ibushi.
All right, moving on to SmackDown, the Becky Lynch angle in the main event. What'd you think of the show?
It wasn't too bad. You know, the Becky Lynch angle was exactly what you would expect. You know, I mean, like, you couldn't expect it to be any different. The reaction was exactly what everybody knew it would be. I mean, I don't think that anyone could have been surprised that the minute that Carmella-Charlotte Flair match started, everybody chanted, "We want Becky," and everything. So, you know, here's the deal. Were they absolutely unbelievably tone deaf to the point of honestly astonishing me? Yes. In the end, is that going to hurt them? No. Becky Lynch is really over. She, you know, it's like this is one of those where it's almost like Daniel Bryan, where your own lack of knowledge of how over someone's going to be somehow ends up working in your favor. And I think that this is one of those situations. Now, granted, could they screw it up? Yes. I've seen them screw up many, many things over the years when it comes to stuff like this. But for right now, I mean, she's one of the hottest people in the company. It's just one of those things. It's the right place, right time, and all that. You know, I don't know what the booking plans are. The match with Charlotte Flair in San Antonio is going to be very interesting. I mean, like, they might as well do the double turn. I mean, because it's going to be that's what the reaction is going to be like anyway. So whatever they do, we'll see. Depending on what their long-term plans are, they'll make everybody happy giving her the title. Although you can hold that off too. You don't have to rush the title on her. I don't know that that's necessarily like a prerequisite to do that, but she should end up with it unless you just have a storyline that doesn't allow for that to happen. And again, they probably have the women's show on October 28th kind of penciled in their heads, and I'm not sure that, you know, when they did this, that Charlotte Flair probably was in a really big match on that show. I don't know against who. It might even be with Becky Lynch, and that may even be the place where you do the change. Because it's going to be a higher profile in some way show. Realistically, is it really a higher profile show? I mean, yes and no. But because the tickets, I mean, I was surprised that I thought that, like, you know, the tickets for the Nassau show were going to go, you know, immediately and be a hot ticket. And especially in New York, where you have all the ticket brokers. You know, I mean, the ticket brokers bought 6,000 seats at SummerSlam. More than 6,000 seats. I don't know how many they bought it on this one. I actually could find out, you know, later well, not for about a week. I'm going to be too busy, but I thought, like I said, I thought it'd be an instant sellout, and it may draw 10, 11,000 people, but it's you know, I mean, it's not. I mean, there's plenty of tickets available. This was not that big in demand show that I was expecting it to be as far as live tickets go. So, but it's still, in their world, it's a historic thing for women, and therefore, if you're going to have, like, if you got some big thing that the fans really want, that's probably a good night to do it. So there's that. I really like Daniel Bryan and
that match was awesome.
Yeah, it's too short, bad finish. But
it was a bad finish, but it was a good heat angle.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, it's a heat angle, but that's all there's been. It's like every week. That's what
they do. They love heat.
Yeah, but it's like you've got to you've got to get heat, but you also have to make the baby faces look
well.
Like
the baby
stars.
faces you had Bree punching out Miz last week, so they've given him a little.
That was Bree. That wasn't Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's the one that's in danger. Brie Bella is just a adjunctive character. She's not going to be a superstar. Daniel Bryan's the one who was clearly been hurt by this entire buildup, by everything since he's come back, and he still got nothing. He got outsmarted in every angle. He got beat on the pay-per-view. Then he comes back here and there's heat again. You keep doing that and Miz becomes the babyface, which is starting to happen.
Well, it's going to happen because if you watch his TV show that follows Smackdown every week, he's like the biggest babyface in the world.
That doesn't help either.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah.
It is so bizarre. I know you're not watching that show.
I've watched because they air it after Raw. Like, I don't watch it on Tuesday, but they air it after Raw. So after Raw, I always eat dinner, and I watch 15, 20 minutes of the show. So I watch most of the show.
Miz and Maurice are remarkably likable on this show. Dolph Ziggler is remarkably likable on the show. He hasn't been on a lot, but every time he's on, he's like, it's just bizarre. Like, it's just so weird to watch a show they push so hard where the stars are your heels who are ridiculously likable on the show.
That's their business. There's no baby faces and heels, except there are. So
yeah, that's the problem. There actually are, even though they claim there aren't.
It's kind of weird, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like the as far as Daniel Bryan and Andrade, I mean, it's like they have potential. I mean, if they could just do this program with a minimal of interference from the women, they could really have something good, because I think that those guys really have something when they were working together. That was really good. Although the best match of last night was still the Buddy Murphy match with Kalisto. That was one of the better TV matches of the year on WWE. That match was, they even got they got 205 chants. They got this is awesome chants. I mean, they started with the usual. There was definitely, because it's Toronto, less people left than usual. And the first match, which was oh god, who was in the first match? It was Akira Tozawa and Brian Kendrick, which was actually a well-worked match. I mean, it's not a surprise. It was, most of these matches on 205 Live are well-worked. Tozawa actually looked really good. But, it's 205 Live, and the crowd's with it, really not with it that much. And then with Kalisto and Buddy Murphy, there were definitely some people that were Buddy Murphy fans at the beginning, but it wasn't it's like you hear a chant, but it's that faint chant where it's, a couple dozen people doing it. It's not, and the building's not joining in, especially because they're cheering for Buddy Murphy. I mean, it's not exactly someone, but there was a little higher level of interest at the start than there would normally be. So they did have that advantage, and they did have a crowd that seemed to be paying attention a little more. And there was a point in the match where they were just doing all kinds of great stuff, and the crowd was, you could tell okay, the ringsiders are pretty hot, which is kind of usually the case when it's 205 Live match that's really good. The people who are at ringside are usually going to be the ones, they're really with it, but you can tell that the rest of the building doesn't care. And this one, it was a little more than that. And then by the end, they were they were as into it as you get it with a 205 Live match. I can't say it was like super heat or anything like that, but it was pretty good. They still, I mean, it was weird. One point in the match, I guess it was when I think he launched Kalisto onto from the apron onto a table, onto the announcer's table, and the crowd was chanting, "We want tables." And it's kind of like these guys are out here having this great wrestling match, and it's like if you're doing a garbage match and people chant, "We want tables," you're kind of supposed to. It's kind of been ingrained, and that's fine. But when you're doing like a serious wrestling match, it's kind of like "We want tables," because it's kind of like it's just like, and this was really one of those matches where We Want tables just completely didn't fit. But Buddy Murphy won, which set up Cedric Alexander and Buddy Murphy on the Australia pay-per-view. So we're promoting like 3 shows at the same time, and I could see people getting confused of what matches on what show very easily.
I tried to read all of the lineups on Observer Live today, and people were just... their minds were blown. There's a lot of shows coming up. There's Hell in a Cell. There's the Australia show.
And there's going to be the
women's pay-per-views coming up.
And there's going to be the Saudi show.
Saudi show. What's up with that?
Yeah, it looks like it's happening. We'll see what... the first time there were some issues with that. I really didn't care that they did the show, but the finished product made me vomit. The way they were just kissing up to, it's like, I know they're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to do the show, but it's just, their justification and trying to make it some social thing. It's like, these guys are they're not, making progress. They're going back in time. Every bit of news that's come out, it's just like, at this point, I could not, I know that there's companies that work with them and all that, but I certainly could not be their propaganda voice. I don't know how they're going to pull this one off. I guess they are. And luckily for them, they're not the NFL and they're not the NBA, who would be absolutely excoriated for doing anything remotely close to what these guys are doing. So they'll be able to get away with it to a degree. Obviously, the women's show is there to quell, not that the women's show is a bad idea, and it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, it wasn't the hit that I expected it would be as far as ticket sales, but, it still may be a good show, and it's still a nice thing that they're doing. But now when you find out that it's, they're doing it the Sunday before the Friday where they're going to Saudi Arabia, it's kind of like you look at it very differently, and you go, it's funny because like Paul Levesque was like, oh, that's this has nothing to do with that. And it's like, the dates are 5 days apart. It's got something to do with it. It's like, that's not a coincidence. And to me, it's almost like, okay, we know we got the criticism from our fan base, so we're going to do this show 5 days early. If it was like months earlier, it'd be one thing. It's 5 days earlier. It's like, it's so obvious what it is. Okay, it's fine. But that's, the fact that Saudi isn't letting them bring the women to wrestle, that's of all the concerns. And I know it's a concern you talk when the company talks about, how important the women are, and then you do business with people who won't let them on there. That is a concern. That is a very hypocritical stance. There's, but in the big picture of all of the hypocrisy and all the stuff that's really kind of revolting about Saudi Arabia, that's really low on the list. It's so low that it's almost like, oh God, of all the things to complain about, that is, you can complain about it, and I did, but it's just ridiculous. But it's a ton of money, and I don't expect high moral standards, so I'm not disappointed. I'm not surprised, but it's almost that it's gotten so bad, between everything that's gone down in the last month or so, that I almost thought, maybe it's a good idea to not do the November show, and maybe just wait until like next April or May, and maybe like there won't be so much news, and maybe things will change, and so you can kind of still get your money, but it won't be, the timing won't look so bad, but they're not looking at it that way. They're just going to be what they're going to go. So there you go. So it's not officially announced, but I expect it to be announced pretty soon. They moved some dates that they had that weekend away like they did the last time. So looks like the announcement's about to be made.
All right, any other SmackDown thoughts before we move on?
So we had, let's see, the Sheamus and Cesaro are going to face the winners of next week's match, which was the Usos, Sanity, and Rusev Day. So that doesn't really matter. I think of those, it looks like Sheamus and Cesaro and New Day's the direction. Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Hell in a Cell. Man, I don't know. I just think that Jeff Hardy's going to do something.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah. Billy Kay and Naomi. I mean, it was short. Billy Kay did not look good in this. I mean, it was not a good match. It was just not a good match at all. And then what else? We had, did you see Michael Blaze against Hideo Itami? I
did not see Michael Blaze and Hideo Itami.
So they had this guy, he looks like Michael Hayes, and they called him Michael Blaze. Wasn't that cute? And I don't know who he was, but he had long 1970s Freebird hair. And Hideo Itami just destroyed him and wouldn't beat him. And then Mustafa Ali ran in and chased Hideo Itami away. So
it's 205 Live again.
Right. So Mustafa Ali and Hideo Itami look like they are going to have some sort of a program. And Charlotte Carmella. I mean, Carmella worked really hard, but just, I mean, I guess after watching Daniel Bryan and Andrade Cien Almas, and then you watch Charlotte and Carmella, it's a world of difference. It's like they're not even in the same solar system difference. Just was clunky match. I mean, they tried, and it wasn't like I would, I guess it was better than most Carmella matches have been. She did a lot more. I mean, the people were kind of sitting there waiting for Becky Lynch to run in more than like into the match that much. But, it was about as good as you're going to get with Charlotte and Carmella, I guess.
All right, ratings for Raw and SmackDown this week.
Nothing much to them. They were, SmackDown wasn't down as much as Raw was, but Raw was essentially, like they were going to be down from last week because last week was boosted by SummerSlam. So, Raw was almost identical to, it was actually slightly up from 2 weeks ago, so it's fine. Next week, next week with Shawn Michaels on the show, and what else did they announce? Tag team title's not going to mean anything, but with Shawn Michaels on the show, I think that they'll get a little bit of a boost in the ratings. They should anyway. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they should get a little bit of a boost. SmackDown number was not down too much from the week before, and it was I think third best since May. So it's essentially by modern standards, SmackDown was a good number, and Raw was the number. Big drop in the third hour, which I think a lot of is because they went 76 minutes in the third hour. They went till 16 after, and when you go that long, you're just going to have people tune out. I mean, there's just going to be people who are not going to, no matter what you got, they're not going to stay up till 11:16. So I think that probably hurt the third hour number a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, they did have a big drop. But again, they'll be okay till NFL season starts, and that's only a couple weeks away.
Toni Storm.
Real quick, the UFC number from Saturday was definitely a total lot. So that was the lowest Saturday night rating on FS1 ever. I mean,
seems like we're getting a lot of these record lows lately.
Yeah, we had a record low for the Friday. The last time they ran Friday, it was, I think, it might have been the all-time low, or was right in there in the running for the all-time low. I think it was the all-time low. The last Saturday night show on Fox on July 28th, I think it was, the Alvarez Poirier, was the all-time record low for a show that had no business set in the all-time low. I mean, it was a great show, and it was a great lineup for a TV show, and it did terrible numbers. This one was, it's weird because it's like, on paper, it's 596,000 viewers. So that's really low for a Saturday night show. Like I said, the lowest ever. But I guess, I don't know if that pay-per-view celebrity boxing thing just killed it. Probably did. Because that pay-per-view celebrity boxing thing was freaking gigantic in this country. I mean, I was stunned. As far as like Google searches, that beat everything except for the Jacksonville shooting and John McCain's death for the last week. For these, so it was. Look, they did 784,000 buys on internet pay-per-view. Nobody has ever done that in the history of mankind. So that was a gigantic. I mean, again, it's funny. It wasn't on my radar at all I mean, people were asking me about it all day long. I just thought, it's some, it's something that's kind of like a cult thing, and I get that it's kind of big and all that, but I didn't think it was, if you told me like it's going to do almost 800,000 buys on internet pay-per-view, that's absolutely stunning in so many ways. So I guess that hurt, but I mean, as they lost to preseason football, but of course they're going to lose to preseason football, and that was on CBS. But they beat Major League Baseball, they beat boxing on ESPN, they beat college football on ESPN2. So it's like they beat real sports, but it still was a terrible number, and it just speaks of the mentality of people in television that live sports is the way to go. You know what I mean? I'm not so sure about this all of a sudden. I mean, NFL, yes, of course. Without a doubt, NFL is going to be the dominant thing going forward on television. But when you're just getting like whether it's WWE or Major League Baseball or, something like that because it's live sports, or UFC or Bellator. I mean, I know it's like considered like this like, big thing and the keys to the future and the savior of television. But man, I look at these numbers and I mean, yeah, the NBA is doing good. And football, even though it's going to drop this year, most likely, and dropped last year, it's still like football's still king. But I'm not so sure about this idea that these other things are going to be the savior of television, because I'm not seeing it. And they're not, again, they're not as DVR proof as people think. I mean, it's like, yes, if you have the NBA playoffs, okay, the NBA playoff game or something like that, the finals of the NBA playoffs, or the Super Bowl or the NFL championships, yes, pretty much those are as DVR proof as anything's going to be. Those really are. But I mean, we've seen with wrestling, I mean, it's more and more people watching on DVR. It's not an immediacy thing. People are not like looking at like, I've got to see it live. I mean, I was used to be like that. I've got to watch live. I mean, it's like I do watch live, but if I didn't have to, it wouldn't stress me out at all to watch it 3 hours delayed or something on DVR. It wouldn't matter to me. And like, Bellator is doing whatever, they're doing like 25% of their viewers are DVR viewers. That's live sports. Raw's live. It's doing 25%. Smackdown's doing roughly 25%. It's like supposed to be 95%. It's not even close. I haven't checked on, what was it? As far as like, I know that like the NBA playoffs, like when they were down in the final series, it was really, really low. But so there, again, there are sports events where that is true. But when it just comes to a random sports event, I think that a lot of the TV people are wrong on this one. But time will tell.
All I know is on a Saturday night, I am not watching UFC live. Just doesn't work out. I mean, a pay-per-view is different, but like the television show, record that, watch it later.
Yeah, I could go either way. I didn't watch this one live because I watched TripleMania, but normally I'm going to watch the UFC live. It's kind of a job I have to do. Pay-per-view pretty much is going to be a lock that I'll watch it live. But you know what? If I didn't, it's...
Well, hold on. You're not doing the play-by-play on the front page, and we're doing the audio show later in the evening. I mean, there's no reason to watch it live.
Well, if something happens, I may have to write something for some I may have to write something, MMA fighting. I may have to write something that night. So I don't have to. I mean, I'm not like writing a, the thing, but something could happen. The thing is, something could happen unforeseen. It is a fight. You never know what's going to happen. Somebody could collapse. Somebody could have the greatest fight of all time. Who knows? What could happen. It's there's still aspects where rank and file. Yeah, I probably don't need to, but you never know. But I mean, a pay-per-view. I think, although I'm missing the next pay-per-view live, but most likely, I don't see watching. I don't know that. I mean, I guess maybe I could watch it when I'm in England, but I'm not so sure I'm going to live. I mean, I'll probably. I mean, it's a good show, so I'm sure I'll watch it when I get home at some point. But yeah, this will be one of the few pay-per-views that I don't watch live. This next UFC.
All right, Toni Storm.
She got hurt in the on the UK shows.
Do we know what happened?
No, I don't know. I'm trying to find out more. But
so she did the match. They held up the X. She walked out on her own. So
she's off.
Concussion, maybe?
I don't know. She's off this weekend shows, and that's all I know. I don't know if it's serious enough to affect the Mae Young Classic. If it is, that's I think that's a real tough one because she's in the finals, and it's already taped, and you can't redo it. So at that point, what we could do, I guess you'd have to put one of the semifinalists in, right? Who are the semifinalists?
Well, I mean, you could delay it. Wouldn't be the end of the world.
I don't think they're going to delay it because of the October 28th show. I think if it wasn't October 28th, they could delay it. They could delay it another month. But I think with October 28th, maybe they'll. I don't know that she's not going to be ready by October 28th. That's a couple months away. So unless it's like, major knee surgery, she's probably going to be okay for it. But I don't know the details as far as like severity or anything like that.
TripleMania fallout from the weekend.
Nobody died.
That's good news.
Nobody was hurt too bad. Pagano's even okay. They feared he had a broken arm.
From what? I mean, could have been anything, but do you know the spot?
No, I just know that he just did a million crazy things. It could have been every single, dive and bump and set on fire and landing in thumbtacks and landing in broken glass and trying to think like if there's any other. I mean, he just did nothing but craziness. But he's okay. Marcela Pena's okay. She was hospitalized.
So that was legit.
Oh, the hospitalization was legit. Yeah.
So, I mean, the botched dive.
Yeah, that was not a planned spot. Jeff Jarrett was supposed to catch him, and he just shot right past him and nailed Mrs. Payne, Maricela. So yeah, that was not, that was not a planned spot. No, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't planned that happened on that show. God, that announcing was horrible. I was just writing it up before we did the show. Holy crap, was that announcing? Seriously, that was. I think it was actually better. There was a show that they did, and it may have been a TripleMania a couple of years ago, that I think was worse announcing-wise than this one. There was definitely a show that I remember those two guys doing that was worse. Because it was the one where they were trying to hit on girls in the front row while doing the show. This was the second worst. It's just mind-boggling how bad it was. I mean, we'll see. I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm still like dumbfounded that there were like 30 spots with Torontes in the when it came down to Fantasman Park. I mean, basically Fantasman Park worked the entire match over spots with Torontes, to get through that match. And the announcers, okay, I have no excuse for Matt Stryker not knowing who Torontes is, okay? Because he's only been, his father was there forever. He's been there forever. The character's like well known in Lucha Libre, just too well known for an announcer doing it not to know. So I can't excuse that. But even if you just go in there and just go, well, he didn't prepare and he's just winging it. How does Vamp not go, I mean, he's been there since he was, I don't even know how old. But he's been in and out of AAA. Torontes has been part of this business forever. Don't at some point you just go, his name is Toronte, Hijo del Torontes. I mean, don't you like identify a guy who's like in a million spots in like several different matches, not even just the main event, but he's in a million spots in that match. He was all over the spots in the Lady Shanghai and Fabi Apache match. I mean, in the Phoenix match. No, the Shanghai. No, he was in the Shanghai Apache match with Copetis and everything. There were so many of them, and anyway, it was the worst. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how you could be so unprofessional. I really don't. But it happened. I saw it with my own two eyes. I heard it. I wasn't trying to hear it. I know people told me I should just switch to the Spanish, but I had a feeling that the English would be more of a story than the Spanish. And even if I would enjoy the Spanish more, My plan was when I got tired of him to switch, but then it was so bad that I had to go for news value. I just have to listen to how bad these guys are going to be, because that's going to be one of the biggest stories of the show, and it was. Most of the hardcores I know switched, but not I.
Brave man.
Yeah.
Liddell and Ortiz has been signed, coming up in November.
Yeah, November 24th at the Forum. I'm sad. I don't want to see Chuck Liddell fight. I know that...
How about Tito saying he's training 6 days per day? I didn't know that was possible.
Yes, that's a very interesting way of putting it. And in fact, 6 days per day. So I think the only guy who can do that is Hogan.
It's true, but he could go back in time by flying.
Maybe Tito can too.
Maybe that's what's happening.
6 times per day.
No, 6 days per day.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 3 days per day, but it was more than 1 day per day he was training. That's what he said.
Okay, well okay, let's just pretend you said 6 times per day.
That's still a lot. It's still ridiculous.
No, think about it. That's completely insane.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. But who knows? It's Tito. Who knows what he means? Maybe he just means 6 days a week. But you know what? But see, I don't think he did, because if you're going to say, I know I'm trying to analyze what this guy says that who doesn't understand English, or doesn't speak in English, because if he says I'm training 6 days a week, no one's going to even bat an eye. 6 days a week. A lot of people train 6 days a week. That's no big deal. So his 6 days a day, it's got to mean something. Right? Something crazy.
Okay, so if you guys think I'm making this up, here's the exact quote from Tito Ortiz. I train 6 days. Actually, 6 days a week. 5 days a week, I'll train 3 days a week. One of those days, I will train 2 days of the week. So 6 days a week, I will be training.
Okay, that's not... Wait, he said he was training 6 days a week, not 6 days a day.
No, 5 days a week, he's training 3 days a week.
Okay, that's not what you told me he said, and even though it still makes no sense. Okay, so 5 days a week, he's training 3 days a week. What the hell is he talking about?
Exactly.
What is that? I mean, I thought he'd just said one thing silly.
No.
It's the whole thing makes no sense.
Yes.
Okay, so I still don't want to see him train, no matter how many days a day he trains, and it's just... Tito's retired so many times. His neck is a mess. His back is a mess. It's I know, whatever. He's looking for the big payday. The Chuck thing's just sad. I mean, UFC promised him a job for life. Then new owners came in and fired him. And, he's used to making $1 million a year. And it's pretty hard to make $1 million a year in when you're a fighter and you're retired for many years and you're not an executive. So I guess he wants to fight. He's 48 years old, and this is just bad.
Well, they're claiming that they'll get a pay-per-view cut, gate cut, merch cut. It'll be the most money they've ever made in their entire lives.
Well, that's what Oscar's saying. But
I mean, hey, listen, I'm sure he's, whether it's true or not, I'm sure they're thinking, dude, let's just make as much money as we can for the one day.
No. They're going to get a high percentage because they're going to get a boxer's percentage of the gate. So it's going to be a high percentage. But we don't know how, again, we don't know how much this is going to draw. It's like if this was their heyday in UFC, yeah, they're going to make millions upon millions. But it's not. I mean, this is a pay-per-view show. So, how many people are going to buy this on pay-per-view? Do you think they're going to do over 100 grand buys?
100,000 buys?
They might. I mean, they might. I don't rule it out, but I don't
remember that Bellator pay-per-view that did what, 125?
Which I think the Bellator, I think the first one did 105 and the second one did 95, something in those range.
Yeah. That makes me skeptical this will.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And again, that was Bellator that had regular television. I mean, this is just going to be those guys running around promoting, and I guess with social media, you don't need television like you used to a degree. I don't know, but again, it's there'll be curiosity for sure that night. But again, is it enough to do 100,000 buys maybe, but not 200 no way? I think that they're expecting like 500 or 600 because of what they used to draw, and it's just not going to happen. I don't think, especially when you have like, we don't even know who's going to be in the undercard. I mean, anyone who's a good fighter is in UFC or Bellator or Legacy or somewhere.
Well, I'm sure if it's like boxing, there won't be much of an undercard at all.
Yeah. So, and I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, as far as like the buys go, because whoever's going to be on the undercard it's going to be insignificant anyway. As far as to the thing, but also it's like, I mean, fighting is not a good thing for guys who are over 40 that are healthy, let alone guys who are over 40 that are, Tito's had 1 million injuries. Chuck, it's just too long. I know in his mind he's thinking, it's Tito. I always knock Tito out. But, time changes. Tito's got a shot at winning this. I actually think Tito probably should be the favorite in this one. He's younger. He's been fighting more recently. He's probably, I'm sure that like Chuck is in great shape as far as training with his wife, girlfriend, not overweight and all that. I know he is, but that's not fighting. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm in good shape. I can't fight. You know what I mean? It's like it's a completely different thing. You can eat right and keep your weight off and surprise yourself with how good a shape you could be in at that age, but that doesn't mean you can fight. It's like the reflexes. You can't sprint and you can't sprint and you can't fight no matter what you do. Age just takes that away from you. That's just how it is. And that's why I'm kind of sad to watch it because, and I probably will watch it just because, but it's not a night I'm looking forward to seeing, that's for sure.
What's up with Conor?
Freaking uncooperative. God.
Oh, are you kidding me? What do you mean?
Well, so you're probably, like, if you're wondering why there's been no great promotion for this fight, and there probably doesn't need to be, because I think the fight's going to do 1.5 million buys anyway. But, like there's no world tour, there's no big press conference, he hasn't been anything back and forth. Conor is just, he's not playing ball, which is funny because he's got a big percentage of the show. He's sharing in the profits. He's not just getting like a few dollars a buy. I mean, he's like a partner in this thing. So if you're a partner, you would think you would promote it harder. But I think that maybe, and who knows what the deal is. But there's no press conference because he's not agreed to come in the United States. And I'm guessing, he's got to train his takedown defense as hard as he can, because that's the only way he can win this fight is by training that takedown defense. And he absolutely can win the fight. I think that I haven't seen. What do you got the odds by any chance? Because I have not looked at the odds.
Try and find them.
Bestfightodds.com.
Let's see here. Bestfightodds.com. Looking for this
October 6th.
Conor McGregor fight. Let's see. Woodley versus Till. We got to go way down here.
Who's are they favoring Woodley?
Let's see. Okay, first off, Nurmagomedov minus 165. Conor plus 155.
Yeah, I think that's
pretty
fair.
much across the board there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that Nurmagomedov should be the favorite.
Wow, Darren Till and Tyrone Woodley are even. Minus 110, minus 110.
Yeah. Woodley's hasn't fought in a while. He's battled a lot of injuries. Till's a really big guy. Although he didn't look that great in his last fight at all. I thought he lost his last fight. Robert Whittaker went out and said that like you should never get a title fight coming off missing weight. And actually in a perfect world, I would agree with that. And in this case, I completely agree with it. I don't think Darren Till deserved this championship match, but I do think he's got a good shot at winning. But Conor, no matter what, Conor's got a shot to knock him out. And really a good shot. In the sense that just striking. Even Javier, Mendez, who's Khabib's coach, basically said, like, no matter what we do in training, he can't stand with him. It's like the difference is too much. Conor will wipe him out and quick if it's on their feet for a long time. If Conor's takedown defense is on point, he's going to win the fight. If it's not on point, he's going to lose the fight. But and that's really what the fight comes down to, is his takedown defense, and obviously that's going to be the key to the camp. So, but yeah, I don't know if he's going to come and promote it later. He should, but it's amazing. I mean, we're 5 weeks out now.
That's right. All right, let's do some mailbag questions here. This person says, does Dave think they will have Flip Gordon dress up as El Chico from Being the Elite, win the Battle Royal, face off against Jay Lethal on the show, thus being booked?
That's, I think that's a very viable way of doing it, yes.
That sure would ruin his viewing party he's got planned.
Is he doing a viewing party before the show or during the show?
I think it's during the show.
Wow, so maybe he's not booked. I can't believe that they would go through with this and not book him.
Well, it is funny because, I mean, he is more over than ever by not being booked.
Yeah, but it's still at
he
the end.
He should be booked at the end. But it is amazing how they've gotten him over by not putting him on the show.
Yeah. It's definitely helped his career greatly by this gimmick. Yeah, he's going to be a big star, I think. He's so physically talented. I mean, he still has very clear weaknesses, but he really has only been in the business for a couple of years. So, and his physical gifts are he's going to be one of those big indie stars, in the next 2-3 years.
He's having a viewing party in the parking lot, so I'm pretty sure he might be able to get in there.
Yeah, if it's in the parking lot, if I could have a viewing party in Montana or something, I would,
no.
Whatever.
No.
Yeah. So he can just ditch the viewing party and put on his mask and win the Battle Royal, and yeah, you can do that.
Alrighty. Can Dave tell me anything about the pro wrestling career of Russ Francis?
Okay. So Russ Francis was, I know a lot about Russ Francis, obviously. His brother was a pro wrestler, Billy Francis. His father, of course, Gentleman Ed Francis, ran the Hawaii promotion in the 70s. Russ was one of the greatest athletes ever to come out of Hawaii. He was a fantastic javelin thrower, and it's one of the great sports stories about Russ Francis that people don't know is he was like perhaps going to be able to go to the Olympics in the javelin throw, even though it was secondary sport. I mean, football was his main sport, and he wrestled too. He was a great wrestler, but his technique was like terrible. So they sent him to coaches to change his technique to good technique, and he could never throw again. It was like he could only throw with bad technique. Once they taught him the technique of throwing the javelin, he never came back to that level. So his javelin career ended that way. So he was a college football star. Senior year, got into an argument with his coaches, quit the team, and did not play his senior year, which is very unusual. In those days, you could not go to the NFL. You had to wait the year until your college class graduated. So he spent the year pro wrestling in Oregon. And, it was such a great athlete. He had, I remember, Sam Mushnick and Larry Matisick were high on the idea of him being world champion in pro wrestling. His size, the guy was like 6'7", 240, good physique. Smooth, incredible athlete. So anyway, he went to the Patriots and was like all pro, one of the best tight ends in the league. And he would wrestle every off season because in those days you could do that. The football players. I mean, he made good money as a football player, but it wasn't like now. And they didn't have the rules in place where you couldn't do pro wrestling in the off season like most teams have now. So he pro wrestled in the offseason. Then one year, oh God, it was George Atkinson. It might have been Jack Tatum. I keep thinking it's somebody on the Raiders. Just nailed him with this shot and gave him a terrible concussion. Hurt him bad. This may be fifth season in. I don't remember exactly. So he didn't wrestle that offseason and pretty much didn't wrestle again after that. But yeah, he was considered a great prospect as a pro wrestler. And then he retired as a football player, came out of retirement, played for the 49ers for, I think he might have played on a Super Bowl team. I'm trying to remember. But, that was past his prime, but he was still on the team. And then he worked some AWA shows. They had a show. This is when the AWA was dying. They were doing 1,000, 1,500 people at the Cow Palace. Just WWE was just killing them. And they announced a battle royal, and battle royals were still pretty big here. It was the last battle royal that actually meant something. And Russ Francis being in the battle royal, and Russ Francis was a football star in a city that was a big football city. And they did I was at the show. It was 9,500 people. It was I was shocked how big the crowd was, but there was a lot of publicity for Russ. At that point already, Russ was older, and I can't say he really impressed me at all as far as wrestling anymore. But he did a couple of shows at the Cow Palace at the end of his career. I think he was in the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal, which, it makes sense because they had all those football players in, and he was the one NFL star who really knew what he was doing. So I think he was in that. And I'm pretty sure that Russ was, I'm not pretty sure, I'm sure that Russ was part of the contingent that went to WWE and helped get the WrestleMania in Santa Clara a couple years ago, which now I'm going to tell one of the big secrets, which was because of me, because when the God, I don't think WWE even knows this. So when the 49ers wanted to, they were bidding for WrestleMania, they came to me and were asking me, what do we do? There was we can bring we can bring Dwight Clark to Vince McMahon, and I said, Vince McMahon's not going to know who Dwight Clark is. I go, you can bring Joe Montana, he'll know Joe Montana. Well, we can't get Joe Montana. We can get Dwight Clark. They named a bunch of guys. And I go, Vince isn't going to know any of these guys. Vince isn't going to care. And then one of the names was Russ Francis. And I go, Vince knows Ed Francis because he grew up in wrestling. And Russ Francis will mean more than any of these big stars. So Russ Francis was the guy. And I'm not saying Russ Francis is why they got it. They were going to get it anyway. They got it because they convinced WWE that it was the most interactive stadium, and they could bill it as that. And, it's a new stadium, and, there's a lot of reasons that they got it. It was the city that made the most sense that year. I could tell from the bidding and who was in it and everything. San Jose, they'd never had one in the Bay Area. It made the most sense. Even though it didn't sell out, it did very well. And, they were very much, they very much want it back, obviously not right away, but they want to be in a regular rotation. They'd love to have Mania back, but that's years down the line. And they really wanted a UFC, but, and I talked to UFC about it, but UFC never, their idea for UFC was a show, with Kane and Ronda, as the main, as the two main attractions. They thought that they could sell 60,000 tickets. And UFC did not have that confidence, I guess, but UFC didn't want to do it. But they really wanted a UFC at the Levi Stadium as well, but it never materialized, and that's that.
First it says, can Dave explain the difference between La Parka and LA Park, who each of them are, the differences, the backstory, which one was in WCW, which one was at TripleMania, etc.?
Okay. LA Park was the original La Parka when Antonio Pena came up with the character in the early 90s when he was bringing in all these guys and creating that thing. And La Parka was like all those guys. Laparca was one of the guys who was, he just got some guy, Adolfo Tapia, put the skeleton costume on him. And the guy, at that time, the guy was great. He was such a great bump taker. And, he became kind of a legend there. So then him and AAA had the big falling out. And Pena, was still alive. And Pena claimed that I created Laparca. And he got the other guy, who had played different characters before, Karis Lamummy, I believe, among others, and made him Laparca, and tried to sue Adolfo to keep him from being Laparca, and they went through legal battles, and eventually Laparca changed his name to L.A. Park, and, there was obviously AAA thought that was way too close and using the exact same costume, the same Skeletor costume. But in court, he ended up being okay with L.A. Park. And then, as always happens, people make up. So they even did a big feud a couple of years ago with Laparca against L.A. Park, which was kind of screwy because Laparca is one of the signature old stars of AAA. He's way past his prime. He's not that good. He's body shot. But he's, a signature star. And when L.A. Park came in, the people were pretty much more for L.A. Park because they knew he was the original. And then, L.A. Park and AAA, like with CMLL, L.A. Park is Bruiser Brody. He'll come in, he'll draw houses for you. He's going to do what he wants to do. He's going to say what he wants to say. He's going to get mad at you or you're going to get mad at him. And he's going to be gone, and you're going to swear you're never going to use him again. And then a couple years later, you're going to go, let's use him again. Business will go way up. Everyone's happy. Then he's going to fight in the stands when he's told not to. And, it's an endless cycle. And actually right now, he's at the hottest point in his career because he's drawing Nationwide blow-ups with either side. And these two sides are hating each other, and they don't want to cooperate. And he's working with both sides. It's like him and Jericho and Brock Lesnar are like the, and Pentagon and Phoenix are like they're the real free agents in this business right now. And, but he's the one that's the big draw now. Laparca is like kind of still, whatever. He can't really main event or anything like that, but they keep him around because he's, he's like, I don't know, like just the old, since Octagon's gone, he's like the old face of AAA, the enduring star. So they're both there right now and Laparca will be there forever, and L.A. Park will be there until he has his blow up. They're committed. It feels like they're committed for at least another year since he's supposed to be in the TripleMania main event next year. And he's still teasing that he's going to wrestle Rush in CMLL in a mask versus hair that I think politically is just going to be very difficult to put together for a long, long time, if ever. So we'll see what happens.
All right, everybody, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The New Observer is up on the front page right now. Tons of news, all-in preview and more. Dave and I heading all-in weekend, so if you see us, say hi. Going to be a fun time, and we'll be doing shows down there. And the Q&A will be available in audio and video form, video.f4wonline.com if you want to check that out. Lots of great stuff, and
we're going to be doing a ton of shows.
Yes.
We're going to be doing Friday and Saturday night too?
Yeah, as far as I know. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, for sure Saturday night.
For sure Saturday
show,
night.
Yeah.
We have to do Saturday night.
We'll see what happens Friday, but
yeah,
we'll have the Q&A and everything else up there, so that's it. Check it out. Front page for more. We'll talk to you again after a while.